I'm delighted to be here with you today at the Summit, and I'm Lynda Rawsthorne, the Director of Estates at the Ministry of Justice. And what I'm here to share with you today is the challenges of my programme, which are to deliver 10,000 places by 2025 on top of the 3,200 that I've already got in construction. And we won't be able to deliver those unless we increase the pace on what we've done in the past. So, just to give you a little bit of background, we've got two prisons in construction. One is Wellingborough and two is in Leicester, Glenparva, both of which were previously smaller prisons that have been demolished and we're now rebuilding. On top of that was an announcement last autumn to deliver another 10,000 places, and that is a mixture of new prisons and extensions to those already existing. We wanted prisons that are modern, that are going to help with rehabilitation, because ultimately that's what's going to make the biggest difference for the future of the prison population. These prisons that we're building are the first built specifically for Category C resettlement prisoners, and what that means is the lowest level of closed prisons. These are people near the end of their sentence of a particular category. And that's allowed us to create a more normalised environment. And again, that leads to rehabilitation. So government recently announced 4 new prisons will form part of that in the northwest and in the southeast. And then the expansion of the existing estate will be both the closed and the open estate. And so with that comes not just building the accommodation, but also usually an expansion of some of the facilities, for example, more space in the kitchens, because we need to deal with that bigger population. And I wanted to highlight here how important modern methods of construction and building information management, which is your sort of digital first approach, are to achieving this. The challenge we have is that we've been using modern methods of construction for numerous years, and so this step up needs to be increasing that amount of modern methods of construction, but also looking at what other aspects of our build and design can make things different. So in terms of accelerating delivery, one of the things that became clear was that the time it would take to purchase land would clearly add to the total programme, because one of the things we need to establish as soon as possible is where we're going to build these prisons. So we looked at both external sites used by other government departments, but also those sites we already own around existing prisons. And often we have ex-military land, and so often we got more than we particularly needed for the initial prison that was built. So we looked at that, and we have found for the next 4 prisons that we do have enough sites of our own in the right part of the country of the sufficient size, because these new prisons, first one will be Full Sutton, which is a 1,440 place prison, but the rest are likely to be 1,680 place prisons, which, as you can imagine, take quite a lot of space. Concurrent activity is going to be absolutely critical to deliver these prisons. We are using a design that we already had for Wellingborough and Glenparva that I've already spoken briefly about, although we will be modernising that, and certainly from a sustainability perspective, looking at how we can reduce our embodied carbon and carbon in use. So it's our basic starting point, and then we will be doing all we can to improve upon that. But when I looked at the programme for Wellingborough, it was 19 sides of A4. So you have to do everything you can at the same time and constantly look for opportunities to bring some of the activity forward. The challenge with that, though, is that sometimes a simplistic view would suggest that if you made one aspect shorter, it will shorten the whole programme, and that isn't always the case. So, for example, we've looked really closely at planning permission, and although it would be great to have more certainty of success in planning, and that would mean that perhaps we could take a different approach because of risk, we haven't actually allowed sufficient time for planning permission to be refused and to go through appeal and judicial review, because that's not been our experience of going for planning permission in the past. Now, I talked about town and country planning, and what we are doing is taking more sites than those we need to pre-applications for planning, and that's an opportunity to talk to local authorities, because one of the things that's absolutely critical in all of this is stakeholder engagement, engaging with communities in advance of the construction, throughout the construction, and afterwards, being part of that community, and also the local authorities who are key in this area. So we'll take those into planning and understand local feelings and how likely we are to be successful with a full planning application. The next stage is building confidence in the market. You will have seen that there are many infrastructure projects which are about to kick off, and so those main contractors have a choice where they spend their time. Are they going to bid for the new prisons and the prison expansions, or are they going to look at hospitals, schools, for example, or do they have the capacity to look at all of them? So working really closely and engaging with those that we want to build with is really critical throughout the process. We've had numerous meetings going through a Crown commercial framework with those who can bid for our builds to see what it is they want from us and how we can encourage them and work with them. Part of that has been that we will be forming an alliance. So rather than doing a full design and just telling these experts what to build, where to build, how to build it, that isn't going to be the most efficient way. These are the experts, so we are forming an alliance at an early stage so that together we can look for opportunities. Now, those in the alliance will be those that have a prison to build, so they've absolutely got skin in the game, and they will be sharing their best practice with one another and with us so that we can then move forward with all these prison builds together, understanding the best way to take them forward. Early works and orders have been another real opportunity for us. So at Glenparva, where we've just had the contract signed, before we actually signed the contract, we worked with Lendlease, who are the contractors there, to put in orders for some of the precast concrete because there are significant backlogs, and as such we really needed to get our orders in. So that meant commitment of money and commitment to ordering prior to the full business case being signed off. So we had to do that really carefully and balance the risks, and that is what all of this is involving. To go faster has to have some risks, so it's about understanding them and balancing them. Streamlining governance really links into that. You need sufficient governance. Proper programme management doesn't work without really effective governance top to bottom. On the other hand, if it becomes bureaucratic, if it holds you up, then it stops being effective. And so it's finding that balance, and we've worked really carefully with Number 10 and with Treasury to understand what would be right for this programme. We've given them confidence because of our record of building prisons in the past, the 2 that we have in construction, and so one of the things that we've done is we've got approval to put all 4 prisons into one business case rather than doing 4 separate ones. So no less scrutiny, but more efficient. Incentivising early completion has been something we've talked about a lot and certainly learned from other programmes. One of the things I was looking at recently was enhanced hours, longer days, potentially working weekends. Could you have shifts? What's the impact of that on the local community, on health and safety, and on completion? And although quite a lot of interesting data around it, the conclusion that we've come to is that, again, talking to the experts, asking for their advice, suggesting if we incentivise early completion, how would you do that? Is that possible? And what impact would it have, and what risks, as well as the opportunities? I've spoken about modern methods of construction, and on the right here we've got a bit of detail about the manufacturing. The advantages of MMC go far beyond just the site. It's also an evening up of opportunities, because this factory building can go on in other parts of the country as well as locally, although obviously you want to look at the amount of transport involved. The picture shows actually a shelf, and the point of that is that every shelf has a barcode. Everyone knows where that shelf was created, who created it, and there is quality control throughout the process, which enables us to have real confidence in what we deliver. So we've used it, as I've said, for many years, but it's about now, with a pipeline of work to come, can we do more of it? There are some buildings like the house blocks where there are 7 in the 1,680 place prisons, where we've already got up to about 85%. However, on the one-off buildings, because initially we're only building 1 and then 2, we haven't actually gone that far, and now there's a real opportunity to increase that amount, which should take time off the build. And having a pipeline of future work, the benefits of that aren't just for this programme, because it will enhance the likelihood of contractors wanting to get involved with us, but also it will help in terms of what investments we do now for the future. So, for example, I spoke about taking more sites into pre-planning than we will actually need. We'll have invested in those, so we'll know if we've got a pipeline of future work that we're going to have an opportunity to make use of that work that we've already undertaken. I'm talking here about the manufacturing approach, and there's quite a lot of data on this slide that I'm certainly not going to read through, but will be useful when you have access to them later. But what I wanted to do was show some of the advantages of the manufacturing approach that we're doing. And you can see here that with the one that we built at Wellingborough, it's 22% faster in construction than if we'd used traditional approaches. And so you can also see that we save money on potential on-site clashes. And the key about that is that, as you can imagine, with so many different trades and such complexity of design, it's so easy to not see where things are going to go out of order. And BIM, which is Building Information Modelling, has been absolutely critical with this design in ensuring that we do the right things. And another point is labour on-site reductions, which has helped us and certainly helped us at the moment during the COVID environment, as you can imagine, which is something I'll be talking a little about. Construction progress at Wellingborough. I just wanted to show you some pictures. We started here in spring last year and should be finished in just under a year to go. Sometimes you look at how much has been done and you think, gosh, how can it take another year? But actually, there's a lot of earthworks and that kind of mechanical and electrical engineering which comes in at this stage does take a lot of time. But the precast concrete certainly went up at a heck of a pace, as you can see from these house blocks, which are cruciform, so that you have 3 smaller wings of 20 men per wing, and then an ancillary wing to make the 4th spur, giving smaller environments and again helping towards rehabilitation. I mentioned COVID earlier, and one of the things that we've been very proud of is that we've managed to keep our sites safe during this period and also to keep construction going. A lot of that at Wellingborough has to be given as credit to Kia, who did a fantastic job moving really fast. You can see the arrows for safe distancing, the changes to the canteen so that there's only one person at a table, as well as keeping people apart throughout. The large site, the large pieces of construction material really assisted with this, and we have paid and put in extra offices and extra canteen to ensure that people stay safe. And we've learned a lot of lessons that we've shared across government and beyond. And clearly, as this goes on, we continue to watch it really carefully. So I'm delighted, as I say, to have been here today, and I look forward to some questions in the later panel element. Thank you very much.